I didn't start a vegetable garden, I'm feeling behind, boo. You know, honestly, this is a really great time if you... Howdy neighbor, how is your garden growing? Mine's actually doing pretty good. I'm feeling pretty proud of me. But what's gonna cause is the vegetable garden's doing well, that I'm gonna be harvesting a bunch of stuff, which is gonna open up spaces. So I need to start thinking about what am I gonna get planting in April so that I can, you know, keep the harvest going throughout the year. So that's what we're gonna talk about today, is what to plant for April. Of course, I'm gonna give you some tips for your April vegetable garden / food crop garden. And then we're going to do like a quick little tour so you can see how things should be looking, or at least how my things are looking in the food forest and the vegetable garden. And last but not least is then we're gonna wrap up our harvest and I'll give you my numbers for March. And let's get going on talking about what to plant in April. And of course, I'm gonna be using my handy dandy Wild Floridian 2023 planner with all its tips and recommendations of what you should be planting, both edible and of course flowers, which flowers, oh my gosh, behind you, there's probably about 10 butterflies right now. It's officially spring, and hopefully we got our absolute last cold snap. That was kind of a weird turn of events at the end of March there, where it was just like, ha, it's cold again, like really cold. We are for sure past all of our cold weather crops, and honestly, we're mostly done with our warm weather crops, and we should really be thinking about starting seeds for our hot weather crops. And it kind of feels like it might be too early for that, but you can start hot weather crops. So let's talk vegetables you should be thinking about for the month of April. When it comes to classic crops, there are kind of 3 categories that we should still be considering adding to our garden. And those would be corn, beans, and squash. And of course, my favorite squash for adding to the garden is gonna be Seminole pumpkins. Seminole pumpkins, hands down, super easy, very resilient, and are gonna go the distance into the heat of the summer and produce a lot of food for you. And what's great about Seminole pumpkins is they taste a lot like butternut squash, so I like them. Who doesn't like butternut squash? And what I really like about Seminole pumpkins is, unlike some varieties of pumpkins, which would be like big, from like a cooking standpoint, not that I cook, Ben cooks, they're more family size, right? Because they're smaller. So instead of like having to like process a huge pumpkin that you have to use over time, like these tend to be closer to the size where you're going to use 1 or 2 for a dinner or a couple dinners, you know, leftovers, of course. Now, if you're a little bummed that you're like, oh, I missed the classic vegetable garden season, well, you can still go and do some things like peppers and tomatoes. I just recommend that you get starts and not actually try to start them from scratch, from seeds, because you need to kind of just like move up your timeline, because it's honestly, I picked a different camera angle today because the sun is way more intense now. The skies are very blue, but it's gonna be a lot. It's warm to hot now. We really do need to move like the warm crops ahead if we are gonna start them right now. Unless you're in North Florida, of course, you got a little bit more time than those of us in Central and South Florida. So something to consider. Now let's talk about hot crops. And these of course are your tropical vegetables, right? These are the plants that a lot of people, if you came from the north, you probably didn't grow them. This is gonna be things like sweet potatoes. Okay, you're like, I grew sweet potatoes up north, Jacqueline. Okay, but like sweet potatoes is a whole nother game down here. You can grow them almost all year round. 1, 2, okra. Most people up north can't grow okra. 3, loofah would be another really good one. And of course you can start getting into the Asian style beans because they will handle the distance of doing the summer thing. I grew Puerto Rican black beans this last summer, but Patrina from Homegrown Florida actually gave me, I think they were Thai beans. I'll put the name right here. She gave me some beans for me to grow this summer. So that is what I will be doing, is using those beans that she gave me. Now, if you're starting to feel a little overwhelmed about the whole like, oh, I didn't start a vegetable garden, I'm feeling behind, boo. You know, honestly, this is a really great time if you want to do more perennial type crops, especially the tropical ones. This is like, we're heating up enough now that you start getting into things like bananas, papayas, mulberries. Like you can start planting them now for Central South Florida. North Florida, you need to hang on a little bit because you're not quite hot enough yet. And what's great about these types of crops is that you plant them once and then they just tend to like keep going. You don't have to keep planting them every season. So it's a one and done. They don't turn around a harvest quite as fast as something like maybe a tomato plant or a lettuce, but you know, they're a really good investment. They're some of the best investment crops, and they don't tend to cost that much. You're gonna usually pay like $25 to $50 if you can't start them by seed. So you will get a return on an investment, if not in the first year, by the second year. Now let's talk about April and what's going on for all your food crops, because there is a lot changing right now. Number one, this is hands down tends to be the driest month of the year. For those who live kind of away from the city and the suburbs, this could be potentially the time where you may, especially if you live on acres of land, where you may see things like actually having wildfires start. It's not unusual because we are so dry at this point and a lot of the water levels have dropped so much. And the reason we get wildfires during this time of year is because we're going and transitioning from the dry, cooler season into the warmer season, and we're getting the beginnings of thunderstorms. So we will get lightning, which is what starts the wildfires, but we don't have the rain to suppress them. So watch out for that if you live in the more rural areas. For those in the suburbs and the cities, this could end up meaning that you'll have smoke in your areas. From a gardening perspective, that's not actually going to be like a worry. But what it does mean is because we are in the driest part of the year, and not only from rainfall, but also because the water table has gone as far down as it's about to go for the year, that means all of your crops who can't reach way down into the ground are going to struggle because they've got intense sun and they're starting to get intense heat and humidity and pest pressure. So this is the time when you're going to start seeing some of your crops fail, especially your cold weather crops, because they're just not going to be happy. So you're going to want to make sure that you have manual watering systems, like you got a game plan for that for April, or you're putting irrigation maybe a little bit more frequent, though some of you guys are going to be told by your cities to not run your irrigation because there's a drought, and there's always a drought this time of year and the water tables always get low. This is just very typical. Or you're going to do some supplementing, or you're going to put down like maybe a more green type mulch. So you might use grass clippings or something like that to help maintain moisture, because that's what's going to happen a lot right now in April. A lot of evaporation and a lot of roots really reaching and not being able to get water. But there are some plants that are actually going to do pretty well during this time of year, and that's going to be all our native plants. So if you're into doing native edibles, something to consider trying out. I mean, there's a lot of fun ones, and I will put a video at the end for native edible fruits and vegetables that you should consider adding to your garden, because you may find that they actually do pretty well throughout the year. And of course, because we're in April, while the great migrations have mostly pushed through the area, the pest pressure is heading up, 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 up. I can tell because there's just a lot of butterflies. The amount of butterflies and bees, a lot of the species that were kind of dormant in our area have now come back. For those of you in South Florida, I would expect that you're seeing a lot more pest activity. For Central Florida, depending on where you live, you might have had some, you might be getting some right now. And so we're going to start seeing some of those pest issues. So remember, things to consider when dealing with pest issues is that, of course, remove plants that seem to be diseased or struggling. That way you don't allow for an overpopulation of a pest. To consider adding in companion plants that will help either become trap plants, or because you mix them in between can kind of just help, you know, diversity, spice of life. Is that the word? Variety. Also, you can mix in companion plants. This can be anything from some of our herbs like basil, or you can actually work with natives. That's something that I do a lot, as I put a lot of native plants around, and that variety actually can help, one, keep predators in the area, and two, that variety kind of confuses some of the pests. Not confused, that's not the right word, because it's a different way to kind of think about it. It doesn't allow them to just overwhelm an area. That's really the big thing. So consider adding in herbs or native plants to kind of help mix things up from the bug perspective. Now, you may have been given a little bit of a relief by that recent cold snap, but honestly, with the heat coming back, a lot of the weeds are coming back in strong. I know I've been pulling and pulling and pulling in my beds, and I just have to stay on top of it now. So now would be the time to ensure that going through your beds at least once a week and just pulling things before they get out of control, especially if they're gonna flower and then reseed and then just like, you know, is a really good habit to get in. You don't need to necessarily go and do it every day. Usually once a week, depending how big your vegetable garden is, 15 minutes often can be enough if you're getting them when they're really small. The reason I also say once a week is because oftentimes a lot of the weeds' life cycle doesn't allow them to get to flower in a 7-day time period, / even get to a point where they're putting out new seeds. So if you make it just like every Saturday morning, every Sunday morning, or Wednesday after work, whatever it is you're gonna do, just make it a habit now. Once a week, just do a quick sweep through, grab things, throw it in a bin. And now I got a really good question about where should you throw your weeds? Should you throw them in the compost? Do you throw them directly on the ground? And the answer is it depends what it is. I generally make it a habit for most weeds. I actually have a separate bin outside my compost, because if they have gone to seed, if you put it in your general compost, many seeds will survive, and then when you go and lay your compost, they'll germinate and then they're going to come back. So I would often consider doing something completely separate, either throw them in the trash, or if you have something like where I have a weed bin that actually gets turned into it becomes a burn pile. Or if you do something like David the Good often recommends, kind of that wet type composting, which it's like anaerobic composting, you know, that's going to break down those seeds so that they can't actually germinate and become a problem in your garden. So you do need to do something different with those especially aggressive weeds that are good at reseeding. And it isn't just the ones that can like reseed, it's also the ones that there's like a bunch of them where they can re-root along the nodes. So even having like little bits of them going into your compost pile, sometimes they can start re-rooting and like spread, and it's just a pain. Now for me personally, I've done a lot of work to learn a lot of the weeds so that I can kind of pick and choose which I throw where. If you're not sure, I would just recommend in the beginning, as a beginner, just put them in a weed bin. Another tip for you guys for the month of April, we're kind of hitting that point where big projects become, well, a bit insufferable. So if you're thinking about big projects, whether it's about putting whole vegetable beds, trellises, you want to build beds, whether they're going to be wood and cement or going to be metal, like this would be the time I would honestly consider doing it before it gets like really hot. I mean, it's hot already. Like I'm a little like, yeah. In the description, I will link the raised garden beds that I use. I highly recommend them. They are doing honestly amazing with how hot the sun, the moisture levels, and honestly the salt that's in our air, which can degrade stuff really, really quickly. So I will give you a link. You can also get a 10% off code. So if you're considering getting raised garden beds, I highly, highly recommend VEGEGA, and you can use those. They have a lot of different shapes. So if you're looking to do those projects, looks like Miss Shiloh's found something. And final tip, last but not least, honestly, we are at a point where many of you have already planted from your winter crops, you've gotten into your spring crops with the warm weather crops, and many of the crops that we planted when it was peppers, tomatoes, a lot of those ones we were recommending the last couple months, a lot of those are plants that require pollination. And if you have not added them to your garden yet, I highly recommend that you start including flowering plants, especially our native wildflowers, so that you can really pull in the pollinators. I will link in the description and add an end card at the end, like, you know, one of the things that pops up, a video that I just recently did to talk you through plants that are pulling in a lot of pollinators right now so that you can increase your yields, because they're doing these, some of these plants, they're doing an amazing job pulling in bees and butterflies. And when you put those right near your vegetable crops, you are going to increase your yields. And here's one of the other things that's great about April when it comes to our wildflowers and native flowers is April is the beginning of the high bloom season for our native plants. Hi, Shiloh. Which means you have a lot of opportunity to bring in those bees, those butterflies, and also other animals that like those type of plants, like your predatory wasps and ladybugs. Okay, so now you know what you should be growing and you got a bunch of tips. So let's go take a walk around the garden so that you can see what's growing here, so that you can get ideas of what you should be adding in the future to your garden. And then we gotta wrap up March harvest because there's stuff that's ready, but you'll see once we go rocking around. Now you guys can see all the butterflies that were behind. Can you guys see them all? Do you have the eye to see them all? I know a lot of people are not always the best at catching all of them. But you can see there's like a Gulf fritillary there, Gulf fritillary there. There's zebra longwing over here. Yep. Oh, another zebra longwing down there. It is very intense. Well, let's check out what's going on over here. I'm gonna get on the shady side so I can show you. Here is our April backyard vegetable garden, and then we'll go up to the front one. But we have some really nice, good things going on. Woohoo! One, look at our eggplants. They are doing, what I think has happened is the cardboard has finally broken down and these have gotten into the soil below, which means they're getting access to the nitrogen and all the good things that they were looking for. And look at this. But like one of the big things I saw this last month is this purple veining just really started to take off. It was a lot lighter like that, and then all of a sudden, boom, it just started really coming in. I mean, look at that. Look at all the like purplish stems. Looking really good. And we're starting to get flowers and some of our first eggplants. Ugh, you can see some of the weeds. This is dayflower trying to creep in. And this is what I was talking about. See how they're trying to come on that node? I need to get mulch to surround this. I just haven't figured out how much mulch I need. And then there's that basil we got and we planted, woohoo. And then there are all our little peppers. And everyone did really good. And we started to get flowers. Now you can see some of them have that nitrogen stress. Let me take you to see. This is what I was seeing, right? You see how like these leaves look more yellow than like, look at this one right here. See how green that looks? so you can kind of get comparison yellow. So what that tells me is this one hasn't gotten its roots down enough. I didn't actually end up adding any nitrogen like I originally planned, but whatever. Once I realized they were getting down to some good stuff, I was like, ah, they're fine. Just let them be stressed for a minute. So you can see like this one's still stressed, which it's honestly, it's the smaller plants that are struggling a little bit for me. But the bigger ones, like now they're doing good. I'll actually probably move some cages back here. And here you can see some of that leftover nitrogen stress on this plant. See that? But beginnings of our little white, I think these were the ping tangs, or maybe the other ones were ping tangs. We got some of the white eggplants are coming in over here. And then look at this, we got some white eggplants here. And you can see we're getting a little bit of the pest pressure here, but many of these plants are resilient enough. They can take a little bite and then they're fine. Is it store worthy? Is this Publix level worthy? Probably not. But honestly, like, who cares? Like, I don't care. The fact that it has like a little scarring on it and then 99.99999% of the plant is fine. Like, honestly, that's some stuff that I think is really good for people to grow their own food, because you very quickly get over these like little minor imperfections, because you're just like, I mean, plant's fine. It's gonna taste fine. It's gonna be good. So what that like some bug took a couple nibbles out of it and then nothing else happened. So we got eggplants coming in. I'm very excited. Don't know what we're gonna cook with it, but whatever, we'll figure it out. Over here, oh, lots of nibbling happening over on the brassica area. But that's okay, because honestly, these outer leaves, it's not unusual that I'll see some of this happening. As long as once we get into like the proper head, they're not getting in there, it doesn't, like, I'm not worried about this. So I will leave this. This is fine. You can see some of our onions are finally starting to look really happy and perky. I haven't harvested any greens off of them, but I will once they get really big. I'll take off the greens and we'll save those for green onion soup. Our broccolis, they're doing good. They really liked their little nitrogen bath, but here's the other thing. They're starting to get little broccoli florets. Super exciting. And that's why I don't get worried. I had this last year when I grew broccoli. The leaves will get munched on, but all the broccoli florets that we ended up harvesting, nothing had any problem. So honestly, when you have stuff like that, like, pay attention to the part that you're gonna actually eat. I know you can eat the broccoli leaves. We tended not to use most of them. So I really, really don't care that a bug ate some of it. And that's the other thing, is like when I inspect the leaves, there's no real activity that I can find. What I'm guessing is happening is moth caterpillars, which tend to be a little bit more active at night, are probably coming through when my predators are more asleep. So they're taking some nibbles and bites, but it's not as attractive, but who cares? Still makes food, which is the most important part. So we can see, got that going. Oh, wow. I just looked at this, I feel like the other day, and it was as small as the other one, but look at that. Look how big it is. That's going really nice. Another floret. And broccoli, or no, wait, cauliflower, which is my first time. I know you're supposed to like do something with the leaves. I'm talking to Patrina later today. I'm gonna ask her. I know she's better at brassicas than I am, so I'll ask her. I think it's to keep them whiter, not that I care. As long as the flavor's fine, I don't care. And then there's our kale. We have harvested 0 from my kale plant because, well, it was looking like a little stressed, and like we talked about, right, with the soil being like, I just didn't want to like stress it out by harvesting. But it seems like, again, like the root systems are getting down past this crud soil that will eventually be good soil, but this year is kind of crud soil. So I want to let it have some very established roots, and then I'm going to start probably harvesting this coming month because it looks like it's doing a lot better. But let's move over to our lettuce bed. Heyo. The lettuce bed, I actually cut, I don't know if you can tell, like probably with the red lettuces you can tell. So all the lettuces that were planted first all got harvested. I think it was 2 weeks ago, week and a half ago, 1 to 2 weeks ago. I harvested all the large lettuces, and you can see they've all, oh, well, it wouldn't be these big ones, it'd be these smaller ones. So you see how there's like a big one, then a little one. So these are the ones I harvested. All these big ones were the ones I planted, I think like a month later. I have not harvested those ones yet. So, but that's what they look like a couple weeks later. The red lettuces are a little bit slower. Maybe I harvested them a little bit after the green ones. I can't remember. I can look back in my planner to figure it out. The big thing you'll notice is there's a bunch of weeds coming in. The same was happening over here. This week I did a very good job pulling all these ones, and I haven't finished pulling this one. I kind of started picking at it, but I had stuff to do, so I just kind of was like, blah. So this is what I'm talking about. You're gonna start seeing weeds come back. These ones suck. I have pulled them and pulled them and pulled them, but whatever. It's not really a big deal. It's not hurting my harvest. I'm not really worried about it at the moment. More of what I'm thinking about is what am I going to do to reset this bed so I don't have to put as much effort towards weeding in the future. So that's more what's in my brain, based on the cycles of harvest I'm going to do. So what's the right point to like kind of fix that? Because you don't want to you want to make your life easier, not harder. So while you can pick weeds every week, you don't want to like always be like, yeah. So that's what's really in my head. But yeah, the lettuce is doing awesome. High five. I was starting to see a couple of the ones over there that were starting to bolt. But since I've cut them, no issues. And everything that I harvested, I did not find any bitterness with it. So I think we're still doing really well with this. And the nice thing is that with the way the sun's moving is these palms, the Eureka palms, are shading this area about 2-3 o'clock in the afternoon. So it's not getting the most, it's getting intense rays, but it does get cut off at a certain point. Over here, if you remember, I cut this down a lot last month, and look at it, it's looking cute, and all the onions are looking cute, and no, I have not weeded this bed, so bad on me. And that spinach finally is just like, and is done. The tomatoes, we are starting to harvest some tomatoes. You can probably see there's one that's ready to be picked. I'll probably pick that one today. But we got tomatoes that are getting really close. We've had some big ones. I'm really excited for this. And there's my butterflies continuing to hang around my tomatoes just because they like to. Or it's trying to bully me out of the garden. It's totally a thing. Butterflies will fly at you because they are not as nice as you think they are. Got some really nice tomatoes coming in. Look at these. These are all looking great. A little bit of bug activity again, but as long as it heals itself, I, again, don't really care. Got some big ones down here. These ones had a little bit more pest activity with a caterpillar, which I fed to some birds. And I think it's just because they're closer to the ground. I don't think it would have been as big of an issue because I'm not seeing it on the majority of these plants. And most of these are just pulling in, pulling in. I did put in a Florida weave because we had some really windy days and I lost one plant. I don't know if you can see it, it's right there. Because it was so windy, it kind of snapped. And so I lost it, which is okay. You know why it's okay? It's because I overplanted the area and I really should have had that many plants. So losing one little plant wasn't the end of the world, though it was a little bit disappointing because it did have a few tomatoes on it. So this area, the onions are doing great. We're gonna continue to let those bush out. We got some basil hanging out. And then of course, here's our potted plants. Woo! And here we have our Chandler type of strawberries. They have produced 0 strawberries this year. But then again, we just moved them again, so whatever. Potatoes, I need to top that one off. Potatoes, I need to top that one off. I keep meaning to thin these carrots, but since I don't eat them, I don't worry about it as much, but whatever. I did top off this one, and you can see my potatoes are peeking back through. And I topped off this one, and the potato very quickly was like, I'm ready to go. And I guess it's flowering. So, and then apparently there was a Seminole pumpkin seed, which is also trying to come back. That I will just need to get rid of. And then here are the strawberries that Connie sent me. And these ones have actually been the best. Not that you can tell at the moment, but usually because I see this, and then I just do this, and then I do this. And then you can't really see my harvest because I eat them all. But they're doing really good. Out of the 3 varieties of strawberries I have in my yard, Chandler, Queen Alt, and I have to look up this name. That's one of my projects this coming month, is I need to go get some sticks and I need to label all the varieties. But the variety Connie sent me, hands down, has been the most productive variety. That honestly is what's been going on in the backyard garden. It feels like for many of the plants, we've gotten more harvest out of the front garden, but that was a much more mature garden. This one, having majority of it planted in January and early February, I feel like it is right on the precipice of being very, very productive. So we're about to turn a corner. So let's go head up front. And on the way up front, I'm gonna point out a couple other things to you. And one of those things is one of my favorite fruits has, oh, hi. Another butterfly. Look at them. They're just so pretty. The calamandan has already flowered and has set fruit again. And we will probably have another harvest, I don't know, probably a few months from now. We'll see how long this takes for maturity. So that's one thing that's already getting going. So if you're thinking about citrus, consider the calamandan. The next thing that's happening is we are on the edge of being in full-blown mulberry harvest season. We've already started harvesting. I don't know if you guys can see up there. There are black mulberries, and they definitely are coming in, are so delicious. We haven't hit the full-blown me and Ben being out here every single day for a half hour pulling in berries, but I mean, we're getting close, really close. And they're so good. They're so good. Oh no, I dropped it. But they're so good. Ooh, there's a good one. Yeah, so good. All the wildflowers up here, I just love it up here. I mean, you can see we got dragonflies, we've got tons of butterflies up here, from big ones, small ones, medium ones, all sorts of ones. And of course they add to the harvest that we can get. But what's happening way more up here than I have in the back, because I don't have the right kind of native wildflowers in the back yet, which I know, upcoming projects. We'll have to do another planning session because I got so many projects I need to do. But the thing is that we just don't have as much bee activity back there as I do up here. Up here, not quite yet because I think we're a little too early in the day, but there is a ton of bees. Here are my Quinault strawberries. These are the ones I picked up last year. Home Depot Lowe's. I think it was like February last year. They're still going. They're looking a little bit stressed out, but they're doing good otherwise. They have been producing strawberry after strawberry after strawberry. I just tend to pick them so you don't really see them. That's what's going on there. And then of course we have our sweet potato bed, which is making lots of sweet potato leaves. That's really all it's doing right now, and that's okay. And that's why you should consider if you want to. And it's not complicated. Just get yourself an organic sweet potato, shove it in the ground. It'll grow stuff. All right, this bed, we have a carrot that's going to seed. Actually, looks like a couple carrots. So which means I need to kind of finish pulling all these carrots so that, yes, we need to make this happen. And start cleaning up this bed. But this is why I need to start considering like what's going in this. I actually need to top it off. But we have cabbage down there. There's that pepper I need to get out of there. Get some of these carrots out of here. And then of course our other cabbage bed, these cabbages overall looking great. This one, I don't know what happened to it, but we'll just snag that little cabbage right there. But otherwise everyone's looking pretty happy. Our Cajun bells were looking happy, but somebody got to this one right here. And so now it's gone and it is sad. But overall, they're already starting to put out just the littlest of peppers. You can see them down there. Over here, the bananas are bouncing back. They have been miserable. If you look at all this leaf damage, they hate the cold. They hate the cold. They would like to let you know they do not like the cold. And honestly, I had a rack of bananas. It just was like, no, and it dropped it. So I got to finish processing that today. So you'll get to see a little bit of it. But we still have one more rack hanging out in here, but soon we'll probably start to have some new bunches coming, probably I would guess in the next couple months. Lots of wildflowers hanging out over here. And hey, look at here are the tomatoes we planted. These ones were the super sweet, what were these? These were the sweet 100s. And if you remember, they were a lot smaller, but now look at that. We have got tomatoes starting to come in on there, and it's doing exactly what I expected, which is this end tends to be much more productive than that end, but we still have plants on that end too. And there's the Gulf Fritillary saying, get away from my tomatoes. Over here is some sort of, what do you want to call this? Determinate variety. We've got a couple tomatoes here I need to pull. Looks like we had some pest activity. So we lost that one, but that's okay because we got a big old one down here. Can you guys see it? Right here. We'll grab this in a little bit. And that's yummy, yummy. Got more tomatoes still over here maturing, with a nice little spider web to help protect them from other people, and by people I mean caterpillars. Spiders are helping out. That's what they do. They're doing it. They're doing a good job. And of course the always very productive Everglades tomato. So we've got a bunch coming in here. I have to come out here every day or every other day to stop these little guys from just reseeding everywhere. Hi. I know, you like it. And down here we got some Seminole pumpkins. So these Seminole pumpkins have come in fast and they have been blooming. The blooming slowed down since I agitated the plant when I moved it back, since it was all over here. So it slowed down on its bloom, but that's okay because there's a lot in here. There's already a couple I need to go and harvest, so we'll be getting some of those. Up here we've got Cubanelles, which are just going and going. They've picked up speed on production since it got warmer. You see we got more. I harvest almost every week on these. And then there's the eggplants we planted. They are stressed. They are lacking nitrogen. They are not happy about all this mulch and then the crud soil that's right below it. So this is an area I'm definitely thinking we need to do some sort of nitrogen treatment. If they hang in there, they can get down to some amazing soil, which is about so these might end up taking off, maybe give them another month once they reach the really, really good soil that's down in there. And then of course our pepper plants back here. Look looks like, oh, well, so in here, so you can kind of see the difference. Same types of plants, but look here. These ones were planted directly into healthier soil. You can still see signs of stress on them, but they got everything they need because this is super, super rich soil. Behind them, the peppers, I got a little couple of bells that I need to grab. The jalapeno has looked sad for a long time, so there's nothing to harvest there. For here, if you remember, these are all Romas. I think I saw a Roma the other day. Yep, there it is. There we go. Romas. Oh, and it looks like there's some more right there. So those are doing really good. If you remember, these plants were a lot smaller and they have already are what? 18 inches, 2 feet tall. They're doing good. Do you remember those, like, what were they? Beefsteak tomatoes? These look so pitiful. And look, their new growth is actually looking pretty healthy. They looked the most pathetic. And now they're actually looking pretty decent. This one like popped up pretty high. They were like right here and put on a good amount of size. So we'll see if we get anything out of these ones. They overall are doing fine. I'm not optimistic for anything from like a harvest standpoint, just because with the amount of bugs I just generally have in my garden, they're more than likely to get attacked. But who gave me the really good tip about getting those little and I think they're organza. Like, I know exactly what she was talking about when she sent me the tip, but like the little like party bags that you can put like candies and stuff in for like baby showers, and you put them around the tomatoes so that the buggies can't get in them. I was like, that's such a good idea. And I'm pretty sure I still have some from like a bridal shower or something, because you know, waste not, want not. So I gotta go searching for those, because if they do hang in there, because they may be able to get the right level of sun maybe in this location, but they'll be shaded out so that they don't get as much UV intensity / heat in this section. So they might have a chance of producing something. If not, it doesn't really matter, because the Everglades tomatoes are already halfway down the trellis. And there it is. The trellis starts all the way back here, and it's already all the way over here. It's already halfway down, and you can see there's tomatoes on it. It's doing its thing. It's starting to really ripen up with tomatoes. So we'll just keep harvesting all these little guys right here, and of course more Seminole pumpkins, and more Seminole pumpkins, and I think there's some more hiding amidst here. And the wildflower garden just doing its job. And there's where all the bees are, right there on that plant. They love that plant. And last but not least, giving us a steady harvest, this is of course our papayas. And this one's been doing actually really well. This one didn't get damaged as much in Hurricane Ian. This one did. This was the one that was like that way. And honestly, the papayas have looked sad on it most of the time, to the point that I'm honestly considering just getting rid of that one. That one's probably gonna produce enough anyways, and I've got smaller papayas on the side of the house that I could move out here. So, I don't know. I'm gonna try to let this section of papayas, we'll probably just compost a lot of them. They got a lot of the cold damage. I can kind of tell, like, there's like tiers of like, this was all the papaya that was on it when the fruit that was hanging there when Ian hit. And then here's the section that's from when like the cold snaps hit. And then this is the new section of fruit. So we're almost through all the Ian stuff on the one that I might get rid of. We actually still have a couple papayas from the one that didn't get knocked over as badly. And they tend to be much more full. So we're almost done with that. Then the next section, the ones that have been gotten cold damage on this one, it's just dropping them like crazy. They're like ripening really fast and then just dropping and ripening and dropping, which tells me that there's probably some sort of root damage or stress that's happening. So it's trying to get like its seed cycle going really fast, versus the other one, we're getting really nice plump fruits. So I've just been kind of letting them like drop, which means later I'm gonna have tons of like papaya plants trying to grow here. I know. Stop. I know. And this is what I'm talking about with this section. So this is the Hurricane Ian section right here. That section is completely gone from this part. And then if you look, this section, then you'll notice there's a gap. This was all the stuff that came started before we got our freezes. And then there's a gap, and then there's the new fruit coming. And then this, you can see, this is all the cold snap stuff. And you see it's like very like droopy looking. And then you got the next section up here. So I want to see what that fruit does. This I've kind of just like, it all looks damaged. It's all just, it's ripening too quick. It doesn't have enough meat on it. So I just kind of like, eh. That is what's going on in the vegetable garden. So let's go grab some bowls. Oh, I got that new root apron thing. That's been really helpful. That was really helpful for the orange harvest. So I'm gonna go grab that, grab some bowls, and we're gonna start grabbing the rest of the harvest that needs to come in so that stuff doesn't go to seed too bad. So honestly, I am pulling some of these a little on the early side, especially these bigger ones, just because I want to make sure I grab them before any pest gets to them. So I basically pull them as soon as I start seeing them blush for the larger ones, not for the Everglades tomatoes. Trust me, I wait for those ones. The daily hunt for Everglades tomatoes. I do find it easier to do with Everglades tomatoes is grab a whole bunch of them, especially once a couple of these have started to ripen, and let the rest ripen on the counter. Because when you pull them individually, they have a tendency to tear, and then you kind of got a ticking clock for when you gotta eat them. So that gives you just a little bit longer. If you don't pick them in a bunch, what ends up happening is oftentimes all the ripe ones start falling too quickly. And now you have to go scavenging so that you don't have 700 Everglades tomato plants growing in your garden, like I did this year. Aw, you know what? I don't know. I wonder what happened here. What's sadness? Something come at you down below? I wonder. Well, you know what? We're just gonna prune you. We'll see. Maybe you want to bounce back. Maybe you don't. We'll find out. But tiny cabbage head. Still worth it. All right, let's find carrot. Carrot. Oh my. Oh no. That's a nice size. Ugh, I can't get that out. Look at that. That's cute. This one. Oh, incidentally, I pulled these ones. Oh my gosh, I can't get the greens out. There we go. Yay. Oh my gosh, these look ginormous. You remember last month? It was so sad. What do you think? Yep, big. Okay, this is just like a ridiculous carrot harvest. That was surprisingly large. So let me do my final measurements of the stuff I snagged here, and then I'll add it into all the totals there. Oh my gosh, this is ridiculous. Okay. I was so thrown off because last month when I pulled one, it was just like nothing. And then this time it's like, what's all that? Looks like one side was producing better. It looks like the west side made larger carrots than the east side. So go figure. All right, let me write this all down. Okay, I'm gonna go and I'm gonna add up for the month and I'm gonna tell you my totals. Hang on, I'll be right back. I changed angles on you. So we harvested 13 crops and it was a total of 34 pounds, 6 ounces between all of them. This is pretty good. I'm feeling really good about this. Well, hopefully that got you inspired to get going on growing some food for yourself. And if you're looking for some motivation on pulling in some native wildflowers to help you get pollinators in the garden, check out this video right here. Or if you want to learn more about native fruits and vegetables, check out this video right here. And what we're going to be doing next is I got to do some seed starting because yeah, I need to start getting my hot weather crops going. So look forward to that, and to make sure you don't miss it, like and subscribe, and I'll see you soon. Bye.